Welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a little bit different where I'm actually going to be very negative, so if that's a problem for you, I recommend leaving now. I'm talking about Zenith today, and I have been very patient, very understanding with recent updates, and there's been some amazing updates, and overall this past year has been great, but this Zenith update that, just kind of came out, or at least they said that they're going to do, and so hopefully they change it, but this is, really bad, and I honestly just think it kind of shows a level of being out of touch. I see this, we're always keeping an ear out for feedback. Every single person I've heard, and I've talked to creators, I've talked to, two different kingdoms, I've been in the Rise Kingdoms general Discord, everyone is saying this is terrible. And so I'm really hoping we'll see some changes. And I'm going to get right into talking about it. So essentially Zenith, right, which is a event to push and try and get a really strong permanent city theme. It's things like 12% health for all troop types, 15% health, 15% attack, 20% infantry attack, things like that. So very important event. It generally, in most average kingdoms, I would say top 1 ends up being somewhere around 30 million power push, top 1 to 3, let's say, and then top 8 to 10, likely for most themes in average kingdoms, ends up around 15 million power push, something like that, 15 to 20, right? Any of the higher A's and you have Imperiums where maybe they are more like 25 million, or they are more like 33 million, something like that, and the real Imperium kingdoms. But that's the 1% of kingdoms. And so when we're talking about Zenith and they're making changes, it's pretty ridiculous that they're considering really a 1% of kingdoms. So why do I say that? So essentially you push, and what they added is a currency system, what sounds like a pity system. And so you get one of these badges, it's basically just a currency, every 5 million points you get, so every 5 million power. So immediately, I have to reference a system from Call of Dragons. It's the same company, right? Similar game. So they have a similar system of pity, where if you push 30 million power, 30 million, you get that pity system where you can buy a city theme. They also have the currency persist, so past the one event. So what that means is if you push, 5 million power here, 5 million power, 3 months later in the next Zenith, etc., after a year or so, you can get a city theme that you'd like. But in this, they clearly say here in question 4 that they don't persist in Rise of Kingdoms. All unused Zenith badges will be lost. And so what that means is you can't accrue things over time, right? Which is horrible. So in other words, we'll go down now to question 5. They have scaling badge costs, scaling attribute-based costs. So this Zenith theme, which is a leadership buff, a very powerful one, and an AP buff, is very expensive. It's 12 Zenith badges. And if you remember up here, that's 5 million points a badge. That's 60 million power. And now if you remember what I said earlier, most kingdoms, that's double or potentially even, 2.5 times the top 1 ranking MGE person for the pity system built in, right? So this is meant to be, or sounds like it's meant to be, hey, if you're rank 11 and top 1 to 10 pushed, but you couldn't get in there, you still get the theme. No, you're going to be freaking top 0.5. You're going to be way ahead of the top 1 in most kingdoms, most regions, realistically. So this is insane. And let's say, it's a 12 for a strong theme. Let's say it's just an infantry attack buff, and this goes down to 8 pages, similar to the theme effect, which I believe is going to be art, which they may associate a buff with. We don't know that yet. We're still talking 40 million power, right? 40 million power for an event theme, that just is potentially cosmetic. They haven't released anything else that we know. So very, very not good. 60 million power for a guarantee for this is insane. All it means is you're going to win the event anyways, and you wasted your push. Why would you push to 60 mil when you can push to 30 mil probably and get the same result? Makes no sense at all. And so what do I think overall about this, right? What I think is that it's a great idea, right? We need a pity system for Zenith. It makes it so lower spenders or spenders that, aren't able to devote all their speed ups, because speed ups are tough, right? Only Imperiums are getting them back in gold chests every day. Most kingdoms, I'm going to be Seed Kingdom. It's a very powerful kingdom, but it's nowhere near a kingdom that can be pushing something like 60 million power without basically bankrupting myself for the next 2 years of KVK. So what do they need to do to make this a perfect idea, a perfect adjustment? 2 very easy changes. Keep everything the same, but don't make Zenith badges reset. Because even if it's something insane like 12 badges or 60 million power, right? If you can do 10 million in one Zenith, 10 million in another Zenith, eventually after, let's say, 2 years of collecting, you'll get it. Still is way, way too much in my opinion. And so that goes to my next point, which is I think every city theme should have the pity system set to 30 million power. It should all be, which is the equivalent of 6 badges, so half the cost, right? 6 Zenith badges. That's 30 million power. And for most kingdoms, most regions, that's far in the top 10, which would essentially earn you the permanent theme anyways. So that would be a nice thing to see. It also means it's not, too generous either. It's still taking you at least a year probably of pushing power in various Zeniths to get enough badges. And I think that would be fair. Keep the badges, make it 30 million. If they'd like to say, hey, it's 40 million power for a leadership Zenith, that's a strong theme, I can get behind that. That's fine. But make the badges persist. Making them go away at the end of an event, which they don't even do in Call of Dragons, is just punitive. It's just punishment for the player for absolutely no reason. And so with that said, I will throw back to this. I'm hopeful that they're going to, react to all this and change it back to either persisting badges and keeping the 60 mil or lowering both, and as I hope they do. But, I think they must hear the fact that literally everyone is saying, what in the world were you thinking? And I don't want to be too harsh. I love this game. I love a lot of the updates they've done. I've been a huge proponent of Lilith and all the changes they've made in the last year especially. But holy crap, this is like some out of touch insanity. But, I also have a lot of faith in Lilith in terms of making changes and listening. They've proven that in the past. You really can't deny that. So hopefully they fix this. Hopefully they do make badges persist. Very easy change, right? It's probably just changing a value of 0 to a 1, 1 to a 0. So we'll see. I'd like to think they can hear the thousands of people complaining, all saying the same exact thing. So with this being a little more of a hot take and a controversial, strong opinion, leave a comment if you agree or disagree and why. If you disagree with me, I would love to hear why you support 60 million power. I don't understand it. I strongly disagree, but I would love to have a little bit of a, almost conversation on that topic. So with that said, leave that comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow for either a stream or a video.